All right. Hello. Is it? All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our general AMA meeting this week. How's everyone doing? Yeah. All right. Perfect. So today we have an exciting meeting. We have a PSC joining us here as well to talk about an event and prep for an event we have coming up that we're doing in collaboration with them in November. And then we'll have a guest speaker to kind of give us some tips on how to do well during that collaboration. So it'll be an exciting meeting today. If you have not yet, please sign in quick. Otherwise, I'll put it up at the end again.
All right. So today we are bringing back General Member of the Week, as well as going over some weekly updates and important dates. And then we've mentioned before that we have our regional conference coming up. So we have an interest form for competitions so we can start planning who's competing in what. And then we're going to go over interview tips with Big Shoes Network and Martha. And then we're going to just give some more information on the AMA and PSC interview gauntlet event.
Okay, so first, our members of the week are Garrett and Kelly. If they're, let's see, Garrett, Kelly, anyone here? Okay, okay. Well, I guess they can get their.
We'll come back to this slide.
Oh, also on another note, if you were one of the people that won money last week and you didn't have a Venmo, is anyone here that won money last week that didn't get their Venmo? Okay, we have cash for you. Right. And then just another reminder, we're really trying to build our Kobe Insiders social media platforms. It's kind of a new CMU account that we've been working on. So if you could please go and follow Kobe Insiders on the social media platforms and engage with them, that would be great. There's some pretty cool stuff and funny videos that have been posted.
All right. And then to everyone that is in a mentor group, if you could please just scan this QR code. This just kind of gives us important insights for our mentor program because it's still kind of a new initiative that we have. But your feedback is really meaningful to us, and we would just appreciate if you fill that out quickly.
Yeah, it's really quick and it gives us a lot of feedback and it really helps us out and allows us to make the experience even better for more new members going forward. All right. Everyone. And then another thing, I mentioned this last week. I talked about our regional conference and played a video on it. That's going to be taking place right here, Friday, October 18th. It is the experiential marketing, storytelling, and the customer journeys. We have a lot of cool events going on, lots of competitions, cool keynote speakers. So everyone, this is an interest form to kind of have a pre-registration for the conference. Um, and it'll kind of have options for competitions, which ones you're interested in. And also, if you are interested in helping us with volunteering, because we will need a lot of help with that as well. One thing I want to say too, um, with the competing and everything, especially for the marketing ones. Those ones you're on teams, and we're going to be mixing together new people and experienced people. So you don't have to worry about not knowing what you're doing. We also talk about them during our divisional meetings. Sales, they always do extensive training and have training nights so you can kind of go over the scenarios and everything. There's also training videos online on our website. All scenarios are up except for the digital and design, which come out the week of, design the day of. And marketing, you can start the marketing strategy. We're trying to get teams together right away because you can get started on that now. So that's why we're trying to get a head start on that. And then again, this is just an interest form for now, and then we'll go in and kind of solidify and, make sure that everyone signed in, still wants to attend and is going to attend. Um, who wants to go? Yeah?
It's completely free for Whitewater
Yeah.
students to go.
That's another thing too. If you look at our website and go under our regional conference, there's a registration button and it takes you to our Eventbrite. That's only for people from other schools that are coming to our conference. Um, everyone here gets to attend for free. Very exciting, which means then yes, yes, that includes PSE and AMA members, and it includes too. We provide meals that day as well. So
And tons of cool prizes and giveaways for just a raffle and if you do good in competitions. So it's the fastest way to get involved, so take advantage of this opportunity.
And now we're gonna turn it over to Martha Kerrigan from Big Shoes Network to give us some interview and resume tips to help us out for that interview gauntlet coming up.
Thank you for having me. I don't really need this. I'm the youngest of 9, so like I can speak to the back wall and not have any issues at all. I do have a handout, however. Actually, I have a couple of handouts. First of all, as you look at my rear end, bending over, trying to pull this up. That makes a lot of sense. Awesome. This is for Alana. She gets the gold star because she connected with me on LinkedIn yesterday. And that's an awesome starting point for interviews. I got a question from someone, the child of a friend who I go to church with, and she wanted to know, should I connect with the people on LinkedIn if I know their names in advance that I'm interviewing with? And I'm like, are you crazy? Of course you should. So that's a really good starting tip. Let me see if I can find my handout. I'm not going to need these right away, but if I could get some help handing these out, there's only 50. You guys are such a great, amazing, big group. This is awesome. All right, so I was asked to help with interviewing tips, and the question arises, has arisen. Oh, there we go. Why Big Shoes Network? Well, we've been around since 2006. We have 4,000 clients in the advertising, marketing, PR, web, graphic design, and social media space, agency, corporate, nonprofit. Our company or companies pay us to post their internships and jobs, but we're also a great resource for different avenues and different professional development opportunities in the industry. So we have all the professional associations in Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota relative to our industry, most of them. But most importantly, we are trusted because the opportunities that you'll see on our site are fresh. They're vetted by us, not by any kind of a machine. We make sure they're actual jobs. They're in Wisconsin, Illinois, and Minnesota, and they're very targeted. I'm also a certified resume and personal brand coaching person, for lack of a better word, but all of that is about me, and that's not what's most important. What's most important is every single one of you. So congratulations! Woohoo! You got the interview. But now what? What are you going to do? I'm just going to give you a whole bevy of tips. And as marketers, you're going to understand this because it's all about branding. So we're going to look at purpose, we're going to look at preparing, and we're going to look at practice. So when it comes to the interview, look at what the purpose of the interview is first. Many of you are going to ask someone, oh, could I have an informational interview? That's one aspect of the kinds of ways that you prepare. But maybe you've got a career fair. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you've got a career fair coming up. And that's an opportunity for a very brief interview. And I'm going to touch on some tips with that. Maybe it goes a little farther and you have an opportunity to do an initial screening interview for a real internship. Yay! Or maybe even a job, something that pays. Hallelujah. Then you'll move forward into a second screening, possibly becoming a finalist and actually getting hired. Now, the job market is tighter than it's been in a long time. And the economic sentiment out there is the lowest since it's been at the end of 2020 and 2021. Doesn't sound very promising. So hopefully some of these tips will help. Okay, first, you know your purpose when you're going into an interview. Maybe it's informational, you just want to find out about the marketplace, or maybe you really want to get hired for an internship. But what is your audience's main purpose? What is the target? Well, for a recruiter, it's to get as many people as they possibly can in the door so that they've got a good selection. And they want to whittle down that huge number of people to maybe 10 or 12 candidates or so. For an HR, human resources person, or a talent acquisition person in a company, agency, or nonprofit, they want to conduct an interview with about 10 candidates and try and whittle it down to 3 or 5. And then finally, owner, they just want to do a couple of interviews so that they can whittle it down to the absolute best candidate. So that is your target audience. The purpose is going to influence the type and the interview format. So for example, if you're going to talk to a recruiter, or if this is the very first time you've even touched base with a company, it might be a voicemail, not even person interview. Hello, this is Martha, your voicemail interviewer. I am going to present 2 questions to you. You will provide your answer, and when you are done, press the pound sign. This is being recorded for data purposes. First question. And then you answer the question and you press the pound sign and you get your next question and you press the pound sign and you are done. Thank you very much. Or you might get a live person like a recruiter or a hiring or a talent acquisition person or an HR person, and they're going to ask you a few questions just to make sure that you are a viable candidate, whittling it down from very, very many to maybe the top 10. From that, you might get a second screening interview, which would be a video recorded interview. And again, it might not even be a person. You will receive 3 prompts on the screen. You will answer the prompt, and once you're done, press the enter key or the pound key or click the submit key, and you will be recorded on screen. And that content, similar to the voicemail content when there's not a person, even if there is a person, might be recorded, transcribed by AI, and downloaded into an applicant tracking system where it will look at the keywords and the sentiment of what you have said and evaluate whether or not you're going to get that next interview. Or maybe you're going to get a video interview with a live person on Zoom. That's a little different thing altogether. At the same time, you want to be as well prepared. Let's say this is like the real job, or maybe the second job you're ever going to get once you graduate college. Sometimes that might include an in-person panel. So you may be asked to come in and interview with 3 people. This is very common in the education, government, and large corporate world. And sometimes you will be sitting next to 2 other candidates who are also being interviewed by that panel. It's a whole different sentiment, right? Because not only do you want to be hearing what someone is asking, but you want to hear how they're answering, right? Because you can look at what people's reactions are and you're going to go, that wasn't the right answer. Then you might get a third screening and an assessment of some sort. And that could be behavioral questions. It could be a actual, how is your writing coming along and that type of thing, or a Myers-Briggs or something that identifies what is your cultural fit for this organization. And then finally, and you might have heard about and read this, holy cats on LinkedIn, man, on Instagram, 6 interviews later, and I'm still not sure I got the job. This is why. Also, recruiters are not mean people. They're just really busy. Because when you were reading about the layoffs that were happening, the 10,000 layoffs with Facebook and the 6,000 layoffs with Goldman Sachs or whatever it was, the first people to go are talent and recruiting people. So that means there's fewer people for a greater pool of candidates. So they're not mean, they're just busy. Okay. Then you get that in-person interview with an individual hiring manager, and that's great. And that's really just to make sure that you are the fit. Sometimes that person will take you on to meet the other team members, which in effect are other interviewers. And then finally, what's great is if you get to meet the actual hiring manager or the director of the department, someone that you may not report directly to, but they kind of get the final say and they just want to make sure this is the right candidate. And what's really fun is sometimes you'll have an opportunity to go on and go out to eat with that individual or with the team. So that could be the last step. And what can be really exciting is someone that I met a couple of years ago when he applied to Lego. who's a designer that went to the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design. Just on a whim sent his stuff in, and they called him and said, yeah, we'd love to interview you. Do you have a passport? Because he was being flown to, I think Lego's there in the Netherlands somewhere, to Lego. And then he was there for a week with a team of other people doing sort of competitive stuff. Larger corporations like Google and Amazon at their headquarters also do this type of thing. Okay, so I gave you all these different scenarios, and it's helpful because it'll help you understand where you're going to end up when it comes to that interview and what's it going to look like, and it will help you prepare. So the very first thing that you want to do when someone approaches you on an interview, on asking you to come and do an interview, is to ask them questions and then prepare your responses and then ask more questions. And here's what I mean. If you don't ask questions, you get an email that says, hey, we'd love to have you come in for an interview or do a voicemail interview. Reply back and ask a bunch of questions because that can help set your expectations. Otherwise, you're just shooting arrows blindly at a target, and you want to make sure that you're as focused as possible. So ask questions before the interview, like what time is the interview? Is it Central Standard Time, Eastern Standard Time, Pacific Time? Because sometimes they're in a different time zone. We have many buyers that are out there that are on the East Coast and the West Coast. What day of the week is it? Is that a Monday? You know, like you want to make sure I'm confirming it's Monday, September 21st or whatever. And the reason that that's true is because recruiters make mistakes. HR people make mistakes. And so they might send you a date, but it's actually, they put Monday, the 22nd, and you're like, oh, wait, the 22nd is a Tuesday. So circle back and verify that. Okay, with whom you'll be meeting. Who's your audience? The name of the person or people, their title and their position. And where are they coming from? HR, a hiring manager? Are these team members? Again, asking these questions is going to help you formulate and anticipate in your own mind how you're going to prepare for that interview. What questions can I expect? You can ask that in advance of the interview. If you're going to interview at an education or government organization, oftentimes they have the same slate of questions for every single candidate. And if they veer from that at all in the interview, they have to circle back to every single one of the other candidates. So prepare in advance. How long will the interview take? And buffer it. In other words, if it's going to take 20 minutes, you know you're going to want to add 10 minutes on the front end and 10 minutes on the back end. How many others will you be interviewing? You might be one of a pool of 10, or you might be one of a pool of 3, or it could be 50. And then where are you in the process of this interviewing? And then finally, verify the application. If it's a Zoom interview, is it a Microsoft Teams interview, that kind of thing? Or what's the location, the process for getting in? Am I going to have my driver's license? What is the dress code, and where is the entrance? I went in to meet with our company's lawyer about a month ago, and they had changed buildings. And I walked into the building and there was no signage. So I went to the security guard and she asked where I was going, and I told her. She said, okay. And she had me sign in. She scanned my driver's license. She gave me a badge, and I would not have been able to get the elevator to go up without that badge. The little electric eye screened it. So that kind of process can be really unnerving if you're going into an interview. But if you know ahead of time, you can pace yourself and get ready for it. Okay. So asking those questions and writing out the answers in advance. You know what's really cool? If you send an email confirmation, you might like, oh, I don't want to bug them. I don't want to say about it. No, it shows you're prepared in the same way that it shows you're prepared when you connect with people on LinkedIn in advance of the interview. Okay, so now research the company, and you're going to do this from the outside in, and you can use artificial intelligence for this. So look at their company website if you haven't already done so. Check the company's social media pages and follow them. Why not? Check the press job descriptions that you're seeing on the career page, and including Big Shoes Network, because our job descriptions might be somewhat different and may even have a name on them versus LinkedIn or some other. And then look at their reviews on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Bloomberg. You might find out from the Department of Workforce Development, DWD, that they had a layoff 2 months ago. That could be to your advantage because now they're trying to fill some of the entry-level positions, or it might not. So anyway, do that kind of research in advance to get an idea of the culture and steal like an artist. All those nouns and verbs that you see in that content, if any of them apply to your skill set, any of them apply to some of the things that you've done that will help give you an in, start utilizing that language. And prepare your answers before the interview. This is my grandson, Peter. He's brand new and he loves stories. Guess what? All of us love stories. We're conditioned to love stories. So prepare your answers to what could be interview questions you're expecting by preparing your story. So you're at a career fair, it's coming up, and you want to give your pitch to someone. And so you say, I saw your booth here, which was pretty interesting. I thought would interest him where would come, and I'm looking for internships, and it seems like a video bring my resume and find out what's. When we get nervous, we start to really talk and just talk more and talk more and talk more, or completely shut down, right? Here. So instead of just throwing arrows out there or holding on to the arrows, you can prepare. In that preparation, know that it's better to be brief than long-winded because our minds are pre-wired to think in triplicate. Think about when you look on social media, you're scrolling, you're not reading left to right. And when we listen, we don't listen for lots and lots of content. We listen just for those short, memorable, powerful stories. Our minds are pre-wired to think in triplicate. Chicka chicka boom boom. Wait, chicka chicka boom boom. Will there be enough room? Again, from the very start. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Come set this house on fire. All of the memories, all of the misery. Songs today, all in triplicate. So you can help your hearers answer their questions, help your hearers by creating a story in triplicate. So at that career fair, think about this formula. I know STAR is a really popular one, but I want you to drive your car. When you're creating your story and answering questions in an interview, think of the challenge or the situation. My name's Martha. I saw your company was going to be here and I wanted to be sure and stop by. Pause. Turn the page. That's why stories are so effective. You get a chance to turn the page. They're anticipating what's next. Challenge. Next. I checked your site and saw you had a marketing internship, so I applied and also brought my resume. And result. Meanwhile, can you tell me what you look for an intern or entry-level marketing person? 3 blind mice. 3 blind mice. So your pitch, your introductory part of your interview at the career fair is this: challenge, action, result. Really simple, really clear, and prepared in advance. All right. How about behavioral questions? Tell me about a challenge you overcame. Challenge, action, result. The team project where one team member, the videographer for the project, wouldn't show up. That was a challenge. So I talked with the professor, and when the problem continued, I delegated assignments and did the work ourselves. Finally, our team earned an A. Now, this might not be the best result. So what you can do is add one more thing. So if you're seeing frowns on your interview, like, oh, this guy delegated. Everybody else, they only got an A, including that's not fair, right? So just watch. You have to open your eyes and be ready. So you can answer with one more thing, and you can say, what I learned was that I needed to actually go back and talk to the videographer first. So he had some life circumstances I didn't understand. So result might not be great. What I learned was ... All right. Prepare in advance for process questions or technical questions. In this case, show me your portfolio. Tell me about a project you developed. Well, the challenge was we had a 3D class assignment and I had to create a mascot for it. We researched audience, came up with a character to align with water per the brand color guidelines. And I used, and this is, we're going to use the technical stuff, Adobe Photoshop Modeler InDesign. And when we presented the concept, we used Microsoft PowerPoint and Word. Result. We were selected for a commission. This is an actual story by a client, and I got an A. Challenge, action, result. And you can modify these answers to, or these CRA situations, CAR, little dyslexia going on, CAR's answers for a variety of interview questions. Instead of a challenge, it could have just been, tell me about a class you had in school. Same answer, video, guide didn't show up, that kind of thing. All right, your responses are going to articulate why you should get the job and not someone or no one else. Because I tell you what our buyers are doing, if they aren't getting great responses, whether it's to the actual posting or opportunity, or if their interviewing isn't going well, they'll just stop and hire no one. That wasn't true 2 years ago. They would have opted to hire someone that was just okay. But nowadays, they're willing to be a little bit more patient. So you want to show why you should get the job instead of someone else. Harvard Business Review posted an article, a blog post on LinkedIn about this. And what they said is the importance is to differentiate yourself from the other 5 people that are interviewing, to back it up with credibility. So give some CAR credibility answers, and to be consistent. Because guess what? As soon as you get done with that interview, if you're one of the finalists, they're going to go back and look on LinkedIn and on your social media profiles to see if you are what you say you are and that you walk the walk. And oh, did you connect with me on LinkedIn? Because that would be a consistent marketing behavior. So now you're going to have an opportunity to practice this. I know we handed out some of these, but it is up here in front of you here on the screen as well. You are interviewing for, and pick one, a sales type interview, an event management interview, something related to digital marketing position, or a PR communication interview. That interview or that job requires, based on the job description, because you researched it, right, one of these different skills. If it's sales, maybe it's direct sales skills or e-commerce sales. So circle one of those or think about that in your brain. If it's an event management kind of job, it would be event planning or promotion, social media. If it's digital marketing, you use Adobe Creative Suite or HubSpot or something. If it's PR communication, social media, or presentation skills using PowerPoint. So think about that. You're going to practice this right now. You're going to go for an interview, this kind of position. Job description says you need these kind of skills. And now I want you to come up with a challenge you have had to overcome or an assignment you did to complete in that category: event management, sales, marketing. Think about it. Think about the challenge. Think about the tools you use, the action. Think about the result. Now you have a piece of paper, or we have some more here. I want you to go ahead and do that. And you're going to practice this with each other. So you might as well hop right on this, because I want to make you stand up and actually turn around and do a little mini interview right now. We need some more here. Pick the kind of job, pick the kind of skill, and sketch out your story. Did you get a piece of paper? I'll give you 2 minutes to prepare and 2 minutes to practice. For doing that. All right, I'm going to have you stop preparing. And now if you haven't started, I'd like you to pair up with someone and have that person be your interviewer. So interviewers, you're going to say, tell me why you should get this job. And then you're going to go into your challenge, action, result as the interviewee. Ready, set, go. And switch. And stop. There's a kind of hush all over the, excellent. So it's going to be rough. Practicing this stuff it's hard, but preparing in advance is super helpful. And just anticipating questions and having a framework of CAR can really help. Challenge, action, results. Okay, when you're in the middle of an interview, it's really helpful to pause and ask questions that show you did your research. So pause, breathe, and then ask. And sometimes if you're getting really, really nervous, it's helpful to just breathe in with 4 counts through your nose and then hold it and slowly exhale, breathe out 4 times through your mouth. They don't have to know. You can just smile and nod and go, they don't have to know. And then ask a question about them, like ask about the equipment, about the company. For example, hey, I saw in the annual report that some of your revenue was down because of this. How do you anticipate this role will help in bringing back that revenue? So I saw in the annual report. Or ask about the person. What do you like most about working here? Or the job? How will this job provide additional strategy, techniques, etc. So it's based on what you did in your research. And then have follow-up questions to their questions. So, you asked me about this, XYZ, like, well, what do I do to keep my skills up? So can I turn the tables here and ask, what kind of professional development opportunities do you provide for your staff here at this company? So if they ask a question, you can turn it around and ask that way. So mirroring that you're listening. And you know what, you guys, I am not that smart and I do not think on my feet very well. So I bring a little notebook. Yes, a handwriting kind of notebook, not a phone notebook. And it's with me at all times. And that way, if someone else is in on the interview that they didn't tell me was going to be there, I can take their name down because I panic and don't remember names, like even a sibling sometimes in situations. So I write down the name, I write down the position, and that's an opportunity for me to follow up later. Plus, the nice thing is that instead of having to go like this and break eye contact, I can just set it on the page and write it without any, or on the table and write it without actually looking at it. So I get some semblance of that. And also I can write some of the questions that they're asking and details that I want to respond to. What you don't want to ask is, oh, what does your company do? Or what will be my pay? Or when can I take a vacation? Or how soon can I get promoted? I should have a big Z behind that. And this is a not fair estimate of Gen Z, but these are the kinds of questions that anybody that's young, regardless of what generation, that we've seen over and over. I've been doing this for 30 years now. It's been true for 30 years. So these are caution questions. If you contact me and say, hey, can I do a phone interview just to find out more about the industry, Martha? And I will email back and I will say yes, or I will LinkedIn back and I'll say yes. And then we get on the phone and I just wanted to know a little bit about Big Shoes Network. I will smile and I will answer, and then you're dead to me because you didn't do your work. And that will be even more so true of other companies. Okay. So purpose, preparation, and practice, which you've already done a little bit, and I would encourage you to do the same, but keep in mind that it's really helpful to practice if it's you're using any kind of technology. So if it's going to be a video interview, make sure that you're prepared for that, or an audio interview. And like that you can be heard, and have an observer, practice with an observer, and then follow up. The follow-up of that would be helpful as well. So for example, check your location lighting. You should have light facing your face. If it's a video app, I'm sure you know this. Make sure your background is appropriate. I cannot tell you the number of times I've done an interview or a mock interview or reviewed a portfolio online with someone, and I see an open closet with clothes tumbling out of it, and it's just really distracting. So either blur the background or make sure the background is appropriate, and don't have a window behind you because it makes you look like you're interviewing for a witness protection program. Okay, so light on your face. Make sure there's very little background noise if possible. And sometimes people will ask you if you have a microphone or a headset. That mitigates some of the background noise that can be an issue. I have done a number of interviews where someone has had a hoodie on, where this part of their face is showing. It's just very uncomfortable. And this is part of the COVID fallout. I really love seeing what I'm seeing right here, right now, but do know that clothing is important. So even if it's online, make sure you're going to wear what you think or anticipate would be needed for the job. Test sharing any visuals. Most marketing, advertising, PR students should have a portfolio. And that would mean that you're going to share visuals in some format, even if it's a PDF. Practice it and test it. The number of times I've had a PowerPoint or a different kind of presentation like this get all schmutzed up because I didn't practice it and it went into Teams, and Teams reformats it, because this is a Microsoft PowerPoint, but it reformats it into, anyway, so I test it on the platform that I will be sharing it in, if at all possible. And then have backup tech. In the event of disconnect. I was doing something like this, only I was on vacation, and my phone was set up on the wash machine in my daughter-in-law's house. And for whatever reason, the sound wouldn't come through. And so we just grabbed another phone and did the voice through the audio using a phone and the visual using my face. And then practice it all again, because it will just make it a smoother interview overall. Sometimes you don't have that luxury, and I understand that. But if you do, prepare all of these things. They're just so important. You want to make sure the person is not distracted. And by the way, I'm going to talk about some of the other little subtle things, but you can have as important eye contact with the video as you can in person. So do know that the camera is where you want to look if at all possible. Position accordingly. Okay, we already talked about this and I had you practice, so I'm not going to have you practice it here. Let's talk about body issues. Go to the bathroom before you interview. I had to use the restroom before I came here. It's really, it's very evident when someone is uncomfortable because they need to take a break. So in person, online, it doesn't matter. Be sure you're well rested, that you've used the bathroom, that you have a beverage or a lozenge on the side in case, you start coughing. For whatever reason, auditoriums like this are really dry and I end up starting to lose my voice, and I have really embarrassed myself sometimes. Eye contact I mentioned, smile. Some people, I'm a natural smiler because I used to be a cheerleader. Hey, hey, ho, ho, we'd like you to know. But not everybody's a cheerleader. My husband is not a cheerleader. Goes into the basement where it's dark. And he works on the computer all day. And he comes up and I'm like, are you mad at me? No. Well, some people aren't smilers, but you may have to practice smiling or nodding. If you're not a smiler, try nodding. Go, that's okay too. And breathe. I mentioned that. Again, use pauses. Some people like to fill the space, the empty space of air. Same thing with resumes, like to fill up the resume. No, pausing is effective. Think, and then answer. And I mentioned the pen and note. Okay, best practices, email a thank you immediately after the interview, and follow-up steps. Like, it was great having the interview with you. I really appreciate your time. As I understand it, you'll be contacting me in 2 weeks with the results or with a follow-up interview. And I look forward to that. Just a reminder, here's my contact information if you prefer to phone. Okay, email, thank you right away. And then in addition to that, send a handwritten note with the interview highlight. Oh, it was so great interviewing you. I especially liked the question you asked about, or I was very impressed with the headquarters and the team members you introduced me to, or that kind of thing. And then validate your interest. I am so interested in continuing this and look forward to hearing from you soon. Now, the reason I use these two thank you notes is this is an image from the Society of Physics students. Now, I don't know about you, but scientists scare me because they're really smart, and I generally think they're not the kind of write thank you notes. But yes, write a thank you note. And this is from Forbes, and Forbes is all about, profitability and company. So write a handwritten thank you note and send it. My son has the worst writing on the face of the earth, and yet he writes handwritten notes all the time, and he has always gotten a second, third, and a job offer. I go into agencies today, and he works in the agency world, and I didn't help him at all. And people are like, "Oh, how's your son?" I'm like, "Hello, Martha Kerrigan here." He never worked there, but he did this process really well. I'm not going to talk about resume. Just know that fewer than 25% of resumes get selected for a second look. So if you do get an interview, please know that even if you don't get the job, it is high praise indeed. This is what I'm doing. This is what you want me to do. So I'm going to conclude there. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain one or two right now.
And actually, I'll hold the questions just for a little bit because we have two special guests that I'm going to ask Abby and Jake to come down. So Abby and Jake are recent UW Whitewater alums. Abby graduated May of 2023 and Jake graduated December of 2023. And so they're going to talk from a recent student experience, their interview process, as well as career progression. And Martha, you can feel free to ask them questions as well. And then we'll take questions from the audience for Martha, Abby, and Jake. So I don't know who wants to go first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jake.
I'm Abby.
And one of the most important things you guys can do when you guys get to your interviews is actually introduce yourself. They know who you're meeting, but a lot of the times that first interview is going to happen over phone or just through looking at your resume. Make sure you introduce yourself, congratulate themselves for picking you, and kind of let them know a little bit about who you are. The interview isn't only about getting to know you, but also getting to know you as a person. What do you like to do on the outside of what work is? Because no offense for anybody who hasn't been in the workforce yet, but your work life does affect your personal life and vice versa. So letting them know what you like to do and making sure that you're able to talk about those things at work will make sure that you're able to do it a lot longer.
Yeah, so everything that he said, I completely agree with. I mean, my boss currently right now, he is very strong on the fact that you can teach skills, but you can't teach personality. So, he knows your boss is going to know that you guys are right out of college. You're going to be able to tell stories about what you learned in AMA and what you learned in PSC, and that's great. But you can teach skills, you can't teach personality. So just make sure, when you're in those interviews that you're showing them truly who you are and what you're passionate about, of course, what you've learned in your experiences, but just where you want to be, who you are as a person, what you're passionate about, your personality traits. I think that is truly how you're going to be able to connect with the people that you're interviewing with. But I did just want to share my story really quick because it is pretty interesting that Rob over here, Professor Boostrom from PSC, asked me to come here and share my experiences on interviews because, guys, I put my 2 weeks in 2 days ago. So I just need to say I have been through the interviews a lot recently, and my career so far, I've been in the workforce for a year now out of college, and I have learned an insane amount. It has been so amazing. I'm in marketing, by the way. And it's been such a great experience. But guess what? An interview that I had when I was applying to jobs right out of college, I didn't get that position at the current time, but they kept me on file and they reached back out to me when they had another client that they needed a marketing person for. They said, "Hey, we loved you. That client just didn't fit your personality type. But if you're still looking, we really wanted to reach back out to you and bring you back and, talk to you and have another conversation with you." And they came back and they offered me a better, position and next step in my career than what I'm doing right now. So, I couldn't pass up that offer. But I just got to tell you, even if you don't get the position that you do apply for, just show your personality and they might like you and they'll remember you a year later. So I just thought that was a pretty cool story to tell there. Um,
One of the things that I really found jobs 4 weeks ago. Said Crumble. So the boxes at Crumble make those. If you guys go. For me, that process was a very process and very similar to Abby's. I'd interviewed with them prior to actually. It's kind of like, hey, I'm not really in sales right now. Different things in PSE during my time, and they saw that all PSE sales videos sent to those sponsors, and they saw that like, hey, we want to interview again. They caught me on the right day. 3 months later, I started my job with them. The biggest thing I can say to all of you, we interview very high turn. If you're not going to show up, just tell them you're not going to. I can't tell you out of probably 40 interviews over 6 months, I want to say 10 of them didn't show up. If you took another job or you're just not interested or you're let them know that, because if you don't show up, you're in a pile that people are never going to be hired at that company. Every single person in that building. Make sure to communicate what's happening in your life. Follow up, like we mentioned, is 9 out of 10 times when someone is interviewing for a job, whoever sent the follow up or the better follow up almost always got the job. And making sure, hey, you're being very specific in what you're talking about. Something very personal. They had a meeting with the team, and one person sent a visual letter, which meant 6 of us on the team. Things we talked about was really impressive. That person got the job, and I think is still with them. Making sure you're being very.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I did want to hit on one point. I know we talked about CAR, a tactic that I used during my interviews, with the company I'm at now and the company I'm going to. Obviously, showing your personality, I think, is my number one piece of advice I can give. But we actually were taught the STAR format by the one and only Professor Boostrom. So, go to him for your questions on that. But to kind of explain it and give you a quick little rundown, they ask you these questions. What's a problem you ran into and how did you fix it? STAR format is the way to go. It's the easy way to come up with. It's hard to think of those stories on the spot. Like, oh my gosh, what's a problem? I haven't even had a real job yet. Things like that. I don't know what to say. STAR format. What's the situation? If you were in a group that was tough to work with, or just a problem you ran into in a club or anything like that. What's the situation and problem? T is the task. Okay, what was your goal? What was the task? What were you trying to accomplish? Share that next. And then A is action. What'd you do to take that? You have that goal. What'd you actually do? And then R is the result. Where did you end up? How did you take that whole situation and make it better? And where are you at now after you went through that process? Ultimately, that's the one that the people are going to care about is, okay, you had this problem. Where'd it take you? Where are you at now? So that's always what came to my head when they asked me a question. I was like, okay, trying to think through all these situations I've been through. That's just the way to lay that out in a professional way, I would say.
In some of these questions. Hey, 2 examples. They went. Some crossover. There's some problems. Some fire I had to clean up. Okay. Advice to you is come in with the question. In my opinion, the most important thing is ask questions at the end. For me, my go-to a year from now, how are you going to be able sometimes sales, they have different and they want you to be that you sometimes they don't even have it's got to be safe. Them knowing you're hey, I kind of want this job. What can I do to get it? And what can I do?
Another thing that I just thought of is people like to talk about themselves too. So, I know we talked about doing your research, following them on LinkedIn, connecting with them, but, it also takes that little bit where you're like, okay, I feel like I'm digging too much into their life, but I promise you that's good. From the company that I just got offered a position for, I really dug into their life. I looked at their LinkedIn, I looked at all the businesses that they're following, all the things. And I'll just tell you this quick story because I thought it was, oh, sorry. I thought it was interesting. So the company that just offered me a position, I applied to them before the job I have now, and I found that the CEO of the company, had a daughter that had Down syndrome, and she was really involved in that whole aspect. She took her to the conferences and all these things, and I am volunteering with the church and I have a little girl with Down syndrome. So I brought that up and I was like, honestly, this has nothing to do with our interview, but I am genuinely curious if you have any advice for me on how I can do better to help her and teach her and things like that. And she loved that question. So she talked about that for a while. And then a year later, during my interview recently, she brought that back up and she's like, hey, I remember you asked me about this. Like, how's it going? And I was like, it's going great. Thank you so much for your advice that you gave me. And, they love that personal aspect to the interview.
We're going to open it up to some audience questions now. So, Rafa.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, what is the most common problem that like you see in like kids our age when preparing for interviews?
We reward for asking questions. You're going to be filling big shoes. No, you guys can go ahead and answer that. They're very interesting. I'm enjoying this.
Single time.
And I would say come prepared with questions too, because there's nothing more awkward than when they ask you, okay, do you have any questions? And you're like, nope, nothing. You should always have questions, do your research on the company before you're going to have something that you want to ask them.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Abby, and what is your go-to question to ask the person interviewing you?
It's a good leeway. I always ask, my biggest thing when you go into a new company is you can like what you're doing, but you really need to like the people that you're working with. So I always ask that question, what's the company culture look like to you? What's your favorite thing that you enjoy about your team or about your company? Always asking about the company culture is usually my go-to because I think that's one of the most important aspects of your possible new position.
I would agree. And what you've heard them say is the personality and culture fit. The American Sign Language for friend is this. It's a connection. And so you made a connection through the young lady that had Down syndrome. And I forget what your connection point was with your first interview. Remind me of that. Oh, there've been some, yeah, well, it's making a connection. I know someone that got hired just because she was really interested in conspiracy theories, and that's all they talked about in the interview, so she got hired. It's kind of like, think about this target, and all these arrows are on the target, right? And if someone goes up and says, pulls out the arrow and says, I liked this one because it was a cultural fit, they're more interested in a few circles out instead of the bullseye if you're a cultural fit.
Yeah, and I just have to say, my boss ended up telling me a couple months down the road, he's like, honestly, as much as you were skilled and knowledgeable and everything, he goes, I just knew that you were the one that was going to fit best with our team. So that's really what hiring people, hiring managers and just managers in general are looking for. They want to see how you're going to fit with the team. So I think that's a good one.
I do want to make one word of caution in all of this, and that was the challenge action result, or the STAR situation tactics action result. You mentioned being asked the same question 3 times. What was a problem you had to overcome? And you want to make sure in answering that you're not a whiner, or you're not burning bridges. Oh, that professor I had in college was such a jerk. It was a snowstorm. We couldn't hand in our assignments, and still he downgraded it. Well, like, just make sure that it's measurable and interesting and not whiny.
My question is, we talked about phone interviews, and I feel like that's more common nowadays. What are good questions to ask after the phone interview? Because it's different from in-person interviews.
That's a tough one. What question to ask when you're in the midst of a phone interview? A lot of times during the phone interview, they just want you to get in and get out. I got 3 questions. I'm a screener. I'm going to make sure that this person, is, et cetera. Another reason why they record it is so that it can be transcribed, so that if you have some kind of an accent, there's not going to be bias in evaluating whether you're the next person. You can always, after they ask the questions, because it's going to go quickly, say, I have a few questions. Is it okay if I go ahead and ask you some questions? It'll only take 5 minutes. And have those questions prepared. It can be about the company, it can be about the person, it can be about the job. Like, what is the next step in the process, and where are you in that? Keep in mind, sometimes they will refuse to answer it. So again, if it's a government, if it's related to a government job or an actual government job, if it's related to an education job or an actual education job, oftentimes they have to ask the same questions of every candidate. And if a candidate asks a question and then they answer it, they have to circle back to the prior 3 and give them the opportunity to answer the question that you came up with. So sometimes they'll say, "Oop," or at a career fair, for example, I have a contact at Johnson, SC Johnson. They only recruit from Madison. And once they've got the number of recruits, they don't take any more resumes, but they still do career fairs. So you'll be talking to them and you'll want to give them their resume and they won't receive it. So for that reason, it's the taking names that becomes really important. You said, Anne has sending a thank you note to all 6 people. Take names so that you can circle back, because maybe all of those resumes that they went through, not one was an answer. So now your name is in their pile.
You have a few more and then probably wrapping it up.
I know you already covered this, but like you said on you can go on LinkedIn and have a casual conversation with like the interviewer or like a manager of the company. So it would be okay to like talk to like like non business related like conversations with the interviewers and also like managers and just like socially network like.
Yeah, so the personal conversations that I had during my interviews, that actually was in person. So I didn't do that over LinkedIn. I actually personally never reached out to someone on LinkedIn until immediately after my interview. And I kind of use that almost as a form of a follow-up. Definitely send your follow-up email, thanking them for their time and this opportunity and, asking for the position. But my personal touch and conversation was in person. For my interview, I went to the office. They actually took us to a coffee shop and we sat outside. I mean, it was the ideal environment for an interview. But, if it feels right and if you have, if you were referred to this company or if you have multiple connections, I don't think that's a bad thing. Maybe Martha, you have something to say to that.
It's not bad at all, but don't try and make it purposeful because LinkedIn is generally a business social media platform more than anything. I had a young gentleman, I consulted a local high school. He graduated 3 years ago and now he's looking for interns. His name's Abuchi. And he first he connected with me on LinkedIn. Oh, one of my former students connected with me. I'm cool. Made me so happy. And then he said, hey, I'm looking for internships and I noticed you're connected to these different companies. Would you be able to give me a name? Well, we don't give the names out, but then he continued with additional questions like, oh, thank you so much, Mrs. Kerrigan. I'm like, call me Martha. And then he was like, well, what would you say I should do about blah, blah, blah? And what may end up happening is if it gets really lengthy, they'll say, hey, let's take this offline. Why don't you contact me at this email address and let's have a phone combo.
Hello. Okay. So probably this is more for you, Martha, to answer, but I'm assuming probably it would be like a second or third interview type question, but is it okay to ask like if the position maybe had been filled, like if you can ask if there were like shortcomings or guess faults that maybe you're hoping to see your next candidate like actually fill the position better to try and prevent, guess, like another need to hire again.
If I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying if in the process of interviewing for a position, maybe 2 or 3 down the road, you did not get selected and someone else did, and now you're looking for feedback? Or is the question, you did get selected and you're looking for feedback to make sure you can stay in the loop? Like, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Okay, I've been trying to figure out how to phrase it, but I guess it's the idea of you're going into a position and wondering, like being able to ask, I guess, yeah, like maybe like a reason why they are now looking for a replacement. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that makes sense. Why did the last person leave? So in some companies, they aren't allowed to tell you that. If it's an HR person, they won't be able to tell you that. But you may find that out from a hiring manager. But you can certainly ask it. Can you give me some intel about why the person left? I'll tell you what, if you can find out who that person is, LinkedIn is great for that too. So that's a very non-answer. Oh, but here's your socks. Yeah, sometimes you just aren't going to be able to find out. Which what you can do is you can say, let's say if you do get farther down in the interview process, you can ask them, hey, it would be great if I could meet some team members of people that I would be working with. And then that might give you some intel like, oh, that's why the person left, because my team member's a jerk, something like that. You don't want to say that, but you know what I mean? You can ask to meet some other team members and interview them.
Oh, I know just in the interest of time, I'm sure Martha is more than willing to stick around and answer more questions, and hopefully both Abby and Jake would be as well. So first of all, let's give all 3 of them, Martha, Abby, and Jake, a round of applause. Don't go far, but one of the things that I'll just quickly talk about, but Rob, if you want to come down as well. A few years ago, we did, at least I'll call it the first version of this, and Abby was actually the winner of the first interview gauntlet. And so we are bringing back this joint AMA and PSE interview gauntlet competition, and we're using today to kind of kick off our recruitment of participants. So the event is not going to be until November 12th. And we're estimating somewhere between 4 and 7 p.m. to overlap with a PSE meeting. And the competition is going to involve answering one interview question. So essentially, we'll give you, I don't know, I'm going to estimate 5 to 8 possible interview questions that you might get. Similar to kind of the way the perfect pitch competition, you'll have 2 minutes. So you are going to have to be somewhat concise in answering whatever question you might happen to get. And this is open to all PSE and AMA members, and there will be cash prizes. So what better way to practice interviewing beyond the practice you got today during Martha's presentation, but to enter this and get some money. Plus it'll be in front of all of our corporate partners. And so may help you get an actual job too. So Rob, I don't know if you want to chime in and add some more at this moment too.
Well, and it'll be in 2 rounds. 2 rounds. So we'll have 1 round where you will go into a room and there'll be a panel. So several people in front of you, and you'll have to answer an interview question. If you do well there, your reward will be that you will have to answer an interview question in front of a room full of people with a panel of 5 interviewers asking you whatever question it is they decide to ask you. Does it? The goal of it is this. It sounds nerve-wracking, right? It sounds nerve-wracking. Guess what? An interview can be a little nerve-wracking. Our goal is to give you a chance to face that and say, wait a second, I can handle this. So when a job is on the line, when it's not a fake job or maybe, a small cash prize that's on the line, yeah, a few $100s is nice, but $50,000 or $60,000 a year is even better, right? So our hope, or more than, I don't know what they make. What do they make these days? Anyway, but the point is this. This will be an opportunity for you to practice your interview skills. For those who make the finals, it's a chance to win some money. For those who don't make the finals, or for those who are saying to yourself, you know what, I'm just too early. I'm a freshman and I don't understand this stuff yet, and I just want to watch the finals. Then you'll be able to watch the finals and see other people answering interview questions. But I am hopeful that we'll have lots of people that will participate and try to make it into that final group.
If we get 100 people, I'll give $1,000 total in prize money. So the goal is we need to get 100 people to scan that QR code right now. If you are interested in participating on November 12th, if we get over 100 people, I'll guarantee a total of $1,000 in prize money. Undergrads only. Sorry, Jake.
I may have to get a fake mustache so we can push ourselves into that $100.
All right. So again, we'll be, putting this up. Hopefully PSE will get you the QR code so that at your regular meetings, you can get people to sign up. Our goal is 100 people to get that $1,000 in prize money. All right. So again, I know Gracie has just one more thing
Just a quick wrap
to
up.
wrap up, and then please do come down, talk with Martha. She's one of our department sponsors, and there are going to be Big Shoes scholarships. So come down, talk to Martha. If you have other questions for Abby or Jake, come down and chat with them too. But
Well, remember how like a little while ago I tried to give out prizes for the general members of the week? They're here now, guys. So we have Garrett and Kelly. Woo! They were some of the most involved new members this past week. So they each get a little prize. Uh, I haven't won it. Okay. And then again, if you came in late or didn't get the chance to sign into our meeting, if you could please go ahead and do that. But otherwise, have a nice rest of your week, and we will see you on Monday for our divisional tours. And next week is our sales and marketing career fair during our AMA meeting.
Come down and talk to Martha, Abby, and Jake.